And also they tend to be super fanboys who just repeat their favorite influencers' gospels as if they were gods and themselves dogs.
This is the most accurate video ever. What is up? It's your boy John Shreve, IFBB Pro, Mr. Tell Like It Is. Breaking news, this just in, there is a mob of roided up meathead bodybuilders that are attacking science-based lifters. I'm joking, but are science-based lifters under attack? Head on over to Natural Hypertrophy's channel after this video, obviously when you watch mine, and watch his latest video called The Hypocrisy of Science-Based Lifters. I'm gonna go through every one of those questions myself and give you my opinion, because my opinion comes from being a coach for almost the past 2 decades. I started training when I was 11 years old. I had a coach when I was 11. I'm like an anomaly. I got into this lifting thing very early, off on the right foot, but I actually went through the process of the evolution of actual training and hypertrophy, because literally it was in the 1980s to early 1990s in the university textbooks of like biomechanics and science, etc., that discouraged resistance training. It wasn't until like the early 90s that they literally switched things over. They were like, wait a minute, lifting weights can actually help your heart. So I got a little bit of skin in the game to give my opinion on the matter. So let's go through this video right now. Now, sometimes it's the messenger. Sometimes you don't want to hear it from my voice. We're gonna hear from another voice, a very French voice that is.
In this video, I'm going to list 10 questions, 10 things that I want to ask science-based influencers. So if you are a science-based content creator, or if you're just someone who describes themselves as science-based, feel free to answer them in the order of your choice.
When it comes down to it, I myself am for science. Without evidence-based or science, we wouldn't be training the way we're training right now. We'd still be told that resistance training is actually bad for our heart health, when it's actually the thing that's keeping us alive. I train people right now who have made massive improvements in their health, and I'm talking type 2 diabetes, brain bleeds. I'm talking people who have had some extremely bad health conditions reversed within a year. Not only reverse the effects, but also like get them off of the medications that the doctors have them on, from just training, nutrition, and having good overall cardiovascular health. I am all for science.
Why do you pretend to not understand that when we're attacking science, we're really attacking you? We all pretty much agree that it's needed and necessary. What we don't like is the interpretation of it.
Exactly, and I completely agree with it. When it comes down, like I just said, when it comes down to science, you need science. Like, science keeps us from doing some wonky shit. It keeps us from doing some unnecessary things. It gives us an idea of what might work and how it might work, certain mechanisms, certain training modalities. When we're talking about science, it's not the science we're attacking. It's not the science we have a problem with. It's the person that's interpreting the science sometimes the wrong way or for the wrong reasons. When it comes down to it, it becomes this thing that is like, oh my God, I'm science-based, so I know more, or I know I'm doing things more optimal or the best way. And when it comes down to it, it's like, no.
Why do you refuse to admit that this entire thing works like a cult? Realistically, maybe 1 out of 100 people actually read the studies that science-based influencers reference in their videos. And that's, to me, being generous. Meaning that the entire thing runs on trust, and trust should be the enemy of science.
100%. There are some characteristics of science-based lifting influencers online that feel very cultish. And you think of a cult, you think of that person who's going in there blindly trusting the leader, trusting what they're saying. And I trust them so much that I'm not even gonna research anything. I'm gonna blindly just trust them, and then you drink the juice and all of a sudden, bam, you're dead. And I promise you, there is probably less than 1% of science-based or evidence-based fans that are actually looking at the studies.
So based on this, it's hard to deny that the famous science-based influencers have a role that is extremely similar to that of a prophet or a cult leader.
It's true. It's an automatic, this person has a degree, this person says he's science-based, and I completely believe everything they say, even if that person who is science-based, who has all the knowledge in the world, can't actually do what they say with all of their applied knowledge. It's very cult-like. They know more than you because they have a couple letters at the end of their name. Now, I can definitely admit when it comes down to the bros, back in the day, if you had an IFBB Pro card, it was very much the same thing. They're way bigger than you. How do you know anything? That guy's big, you're small. So I can see both sides, but you can't deny that the cult-like characteristics of evidence-based communities and influencers.
Question number 4, why do you not police your own? I personally am a bit of an asshole, admittedly, and I police the fuck out of other natural lifters that are within my community. Because when they start spouting bullshit that gets people hurt or demotivates people, I'm going to step in and say, no, you don't get to do this because you are hurting the community as a whole. I rarely see that within science-based spheres.
That is completely true. Because I believe that if this is truly your passion, as a coach, as an evidence-based lifter, as a natural lifter, as a whatever, when it comes to fitness in itself, you should be offended and you should be policing your own. And when you go online, the person is trying to like find out how to do a squat or find the best way to approach their nutrition, they gotta go sift through a bunch of absolute nonsense from all fronts. Bros, science-based lifters, naturals saying they're natural but they're not. It's doctors. So when someone says something or does something online and you're like, whoa, wait a minute, that is absolute bullshit, then we have to call it out. And we do call it out. You've seen most of us call each other out. We call it our own community. I've called it IFBB pros. I've called it science-based lifters. I've called it natties. I call them all out. We all do. But literally when it comes to the evidence-based lifters or evidence-based community, not many call themselves out. Like there are some few purists in this industry now that are evidence-based that are actually starting to say, hey, that's not right. But it's even funny because when they do say that, then they're discredited because they're not old enough. They might be a female, but that's exactly what's happening. You have to ask yourself the question, why is it that in that community, you guys aren't policing it like we are policing ourselves and everything else?
Why do science-based influencers so rarely take accountability when they're wrong? You know, a telltale sign that you're in a court is the fact that the court leader enjoys absolute authority without ever having to explain why he's right or needed to even own up to being wrong in the first place when his teachings are demonstrated as being false.
The easiest example there is Dr. Mike. No one's denying that Dr. Mike is highly educated and intelligent. But when it comes down to it, he's been wrong. There's an accountability part when it comes to being a coach, when it comes to being an educator. If you have information that you're putting out online that millions of people are going to see and hear and probably follow, and you find out that what you're saying might have been the wrong information, it is your job, it is your obligation to say, I was wrong about that. I was wrong. And you know what? I'm gonna correct myself right now. Here's the best way to do X, Y, and Z.
As someone who has never been shy about criticizing science-based content, I can tell you that whenever I do, and it starts to, in a sense, exist outside of my community and people who are science-based start to find my videos, find my arguments, the level of rhetoric that I receive from these guys is bottom of the fucking barrel. They tend to be hyper-dogmatic, which is the enemy of science, and also they tend to be super fanboys who just repeat their favorite influencers' gospels as if they were gods and themselves dogs.
This is the most accurate video ever. You should be open for criticism. Once you believe that you can no longer be taught anything is when you literally start not knowing anything. Guys, don't take my word for everything. I do my best to make sure they're putting out the most quality information I can, but I want you to do your own job and think for yourself. Do your own research. Don't just take my word for it. I want you to look for things and let me know if I'm doing wrong, because I know that if I get good constructive criticism, that's going to make me a better coach. So I do definitely agree that when it comes down to criticism, it's like, why can't you guys take criticism? Why, when you do take criticism, you get offended, defensive, and then start on the attack? Those types of reactions or responses should be somewhat alarming.
Why do science-based lifters keep pretending that you're either science-based or some troglodyte that is just throwing weights around? Why is there no middle ground? People are selfish and they're going to be progress-oriented. If something works, they're going to do it. So to me, this entire idea that there is this divide between the two camps is a fabrication.
And that's the thing that I agree with too, and I said at the beginning of the video. I love science. We need it. When it comes down to all methods of hypertrophy, contractions, these are things that have been around for years. And when I started training, those things were applied when I was training. And over the years, some things have changed because the better that science got, the evolution of more information and more study, the better it made things. The better it made this fitness community in terms of gym equipment, supplements, in terms of exercise modalities and whatnot. I would say a majority of coaches come from a base of science. You can't deny it. Hypertrophy isn't something that a bro made up. Science is needed. There's this like weird notion of like this split in the middle that you can't be both. You have to be one or the other. You're either evidence-based, and if you're evidence-based, all you do is studies, and because you do studies, you're more trustworthy, or you're on the other side and you're a bro that lifts and you're just a meathead. And all the thing you do on that side is meathead shit, and all the people do on this side is evidence-based science shit, and there's no middle ground. When that's like the biggest lie, and it's the biggest trick that's been played in our community. You 100% can be both. John Bennett, absolutely great example. Myself, I'm a great example. I don't list off studies, but I know that the basis of my knowledge is going to come from a textbook.
Why are you obsessed with optimization? I think most science-based lifters claim to be optimal because they know it plays off of people's fear of missing out. Everyone is terrified of doing the wrong exercise and leaving gains on the table, to the point that most people will straight up refuse to do anything unless they know for certain it will work, which anyone who has accomplished anything in the gym or outside of the gym will tell you is completely unreasonable.
That is so bang on. For me, my goal is to teach what is absolutely necessary for you to get to your goals. And what's necessary to get to your goals will be very heavily weighed on your individual approach. That when it comes down to optimization, it's about doing what's necessary for you. And when it comes down to it, that's my goal. I want to do all the things that are necessary to keep me healthy, strong, and happy. And if it means, hey, you don't have to lay on your back and do a bicep curl, you don't. But if you want to do it, go right ahead. You have to find out if that thing works for you. And that's where the biggest part of optimization that kind of fails, is that we're so stuck on even some of the tier lists that even I do. I even say, here's the tiers of things that I've some experience that I have. And you know what? In the end of the day, when it comes down to it, do you, boo-boo, whatever you like to do, it's gonna be the best for you. When it comes down to it, enjoyment of said exercise or modality or whatever, or environment is gonna be one of the main indicators of your success. But there is a part of that optimization part that makes people so scared. And I've had so many consultations and I've heard the same thing over and over and over again. It's like, I don't know what to do. It's like paralysis by analysis. There's so much studies out there, I don't know what to do. I'm so scared to do this, I'm so scared to do that. Should I be doing this, should I be doing that? It's like, just do it yourself and see what works for you. And that's the thing, but you can't have this approach that you're just scared to do things, so you're just gonna end up not doing anything.
Why do you welcome PED users in your ranks? If the goal of science-based lifting is to optimize hypertrophy or performance by paying attention to very minor details of training, then logically, people that get massive improvements in both size and strength without paying attention to these parameters, simply by injecting anabolic steroids, should be automatically dismissed from the equation. Because how do you justify splitting hair to that level to optimize when whatever orals or injections you get does 1,000 times that? I mean, one of the biggest names in the industry of the science-based content is Mike Israetel, who is openly on steroids and who works with people who are openly on steroids. And that doesn't automatically mean that his methods are wrong, only that it makes them dubious. But in the case of Israetel and the people he coaches, it literally didn't work for him or for them. Because in his case, he failed to achieve a good natty physique without the drugs.
I do agree and I don't agree at the same time. I agree that when someone says my methods have been proven to work, yet the methods that have been applied to their own life don't work even while using steroids. It would almost like be like a cheat code. It literally when it comes down to it, that's what's kind of contradictory about it, is like, if you're saying that your methods work, they should work, right? They should work without steroids. And if you're taking steroids, they should most definitely work, but they did in his case work at all. Then on the other hand, it's like, if you're honest about it and you are someone who is on steroids, like for myself, I'll say this, I'm not on anything right now, so like I'm not a science-based lifter, whatever, but I have a majority of natural clients. A majority of, I would say 90% of the people I coach are natural. What I apply to them works, but I'm not at a science-based or evidence-based anything, so I can't be like, science works for this. But like I said, when it comes down to it, the basis of my coaching is always gonna come from a scientific foundation. You can have an evidence-based lifter who is, or an evidence-based lifter or PhD holder or whatever, that is on steroids, that is coaching somebody using their methods that are natural, that work. And on the other side, I agree with them. It's like, if you're gonna say that your methods work, but your entire group of people who are science-based lifters or educators are all on steroids, that is extremely misleading.
But the majority of what is presented nowadays as breakthroughs in the world of biomechanics or exercise science has been in the literature for the past 30 years.
This isn't new. None of this is new. It might be new on social media because it's a new thing. It's a new gimmick. It's a new quick fix. It might seem that way. It might seem brand new, but it's literally been around since the 90s. Like I said, when I first started training, I was 11 years old. That's when things started really picking up when it comes to evidence-based, or when it comes to like resistance training and having a scientific background or foundation of optimization. And that's the thing you have to understand. When it comes down to it, anybody and everybody who is working out, whether you say you're a science-based or not, there's a scientific foundation to hypertrophy, strength, all of those things. So to say you're one or the other and creating this divide is quite redundant. Anyway, if you're at the beginning of your fitness journey, or you've already made some great progress already and you're kind of stuck, you know where to go from here, hit that link in the description below, johnshfitness.com. Fill that application, get on a 50-minute video call with myself, and we go over your goals and see what we can achieve together. Also use my code Johnny10 for 10% off bluestarnutraceuticals.com. And until next time, you know how it is. Iron sharpens iron, progressive will overload your life. In the meantime, keep dream chasing.